2 minutes out into the broadcast, Kristen. And we are up on Facebook Live. We are 2 minutes out into the broadcast, Kristen.
All right, folks. Hey there. Thanks for joining us here on Facebook. And as you see, I just sent out a little comment saying that for the next half hour, we're going to be doing something brand new. We're going to be on broadcast television, and we are going to be on Facebook Live. Now, I'm just going to need to figure out how to turn off the volume here.
I just sent out a little comment saying that for the next half hour,
Dave is going to help me with that.
doing something brand new. We're going to be on
Wow, that's a little freaky. I'm hearing the feedback, of course. But why we're doing this is so that we can get your questions live and then get our experts that we'll be talking with during this half hour to answer your question. Yeah, live on the air, on TV, and also on Facebook. So this is a new experiment, and we wanted to start that so that we can keep you up to date on coronavirus developments here in the Bay Area, both in terms of the medical and any new orders, any new requirements for the state, any new cases. In addition to that, we want to also talk a little bit about things that we can do to make this shelter-in-place period more livable for all of us, if you will, in a way that makes us more connected, offering each other our own advice and tips and things that have worked for us, whether it's a way to learn remotely or connect with your elderly parents or make a mask maybe. We're going to talk about all that, but more importantly, we want to cover the things you need to know medically, legally, and how to keep you safe during this time. All right, 15, so we're about to go live on television. I'm going to look into this camera, and you're on Facebook with me. All right, here we go. Wish me luck.
Now, your health, your safety. This is ABC7 News.
An update on confirmed COVID-19 cases in the Bay Area. A free testing site in the East Bay gets overwhelmed, and the Olympics postponed. Another day of major headlines surrounding the coronavirus as we kick off a new broadcast to cover it all. Good afternoon, I'm Kristen Z, and this is a new daily interactive 3 o'clock edition of ABC7 News. Really glad you're with us because we plan on talking directly with you on Facebook Live. In fact, if you're on Facebook Live, you can see us right now. We are all going through this journey together. It's not easy, but together it's more bearable, and we can get through it as a community. So I want to interact with all of you, so feel free to just jump in and talk with me. If you're on Facebook now, such as Carlos Sanchez is, you're saying hello from Dallas. We welcome you. Corey Thorbeck, you're also saying hello, so thank you so much, all of you. Shoot away with your questions on Facebook Live. Tell me, first of all, we're going to go a little light here because I think we kind of all need that to feel like we can get our zen during this very difficult time. Tell me what you did this past weekend. What did you do? We were on a lockdown situation here in a shelter in place, but what did you do? So share that with us. Every day we'll be here for you at this time with topical guests and ways to keep your sanity at home. We're also going to be on TV as well, but the benefit of streaming on Facebook Live is added content during the breaks, during which time we can just chat, we can share pictures. So let's get to all the headlines from today. Okay, we'll start worldwide. Italy recorded a smaller day-to-day increase in new coronavirus cases for a second straight day. The 2020 Summer Olympics, though, that's been officially postponed to 2021. As you know, that was going to be in Tokyo. The UN chief is calling for immediate ceasefire in conflicts around the world to tackle the coronavirus pandemic. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel, spokesperson, says Merkel has now tested negative for the new coronavirus. Locally, there are now 819 confirmed cases in the Bay Area. Alameda County is reporting its first COVID-19 related death. A San Francisco Sheriff's deputy, Marin County's public health officer, and 2 Milpitas firefighters are among those who tested positive for the coronavirus. A new coronavirus testing site has just opened in the meantime in Hayward. But as you can see from Drone View 7, look at those cars. They were just overwhelmed. Only 1 in every 5 people got to take a test, mostly because they did not meet the threshold for symptoms, the rest of them. The others were turned away, but Hayward officials hope to keep the site open for 3 weeks. It's on Huntwood Avenue in front of Fire Station number 7, and it will be open from 9 in the morning until 6 p.m. Now, San Francisco Mayor London Breed wrapped up a news conference about 30 minutes ago, and she was not at all pleased with how people handled the shelter-in-place order over the weekend. The order keeps parks open and allows people to go outside for brief visits to walk their dog, that kind of thing. But the mayor says people missed the point this weekend.
It's not a matter of whether or not we're going to have more people get sick. They are. And what happens if it's your grandmother? What happens if it's your uncle? And what happens if we don't have a bed for them to be in because they got sick? We don't want to get to that point. And so the reason why I'm appealing to the public to ask for your support in complying with this order is because it is a matter of life or death. This is not the time for a party, for a play date, for things that people think that we need to do. This is a get outside, get some fresh air, practice social distancing, and be respectful of your neighbors and one another.
All right, so the mayor says she does not want to order city parks to close, but she will if she has to protect public safety. So the stay-at-home orders from the governor have resulted in a lot of questions. We're Skyping with San Mateo attorney and former Alameda County prosecutor David Lim to answer a few of them for you. And through this Facebook Live, of course, you can ask those questions in real time. So we're seeing a bunch of good ones coming in right now. But David, thanks for joining us, and I'll start, okay?
Hi, Kristen. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Okay, so we just heard Mayor Breed emphasize in the strongest terms that people stay home. If they must go out, exercise social distancing. But at the same time, they emphasize this is still voluntary, and they have made no arrests in San Francisco. And as far as we know, given no citations. So how should people interpret that? Is it a misdemeanor or a crime to go out and hang out too closely with people who are not in your household?
Well, it's sort of an open question. Right now, the shelter-in-place order issued by the county health directors in the 7 Bay Area counties, probably now 10 Bay Area counties, are enforceable under California state law as misdemeanors under the Health and Safety Code. And I would say the governor's order is also enforceable as a misdemeanor. The larger statewide shelter-in-place is enforceable as a misdemeanor. They are what are called general misdemeanors, which are punishable by up to 6 months in the county jail or a $1,000 fine. So they do have the force of law in fact that you could be cited for a misdemeanor, I guess, if you were found in violation of the shelter-in-place order.
All right. David, thank you so much. I'm getting a question in from Joanne Segura. I don't know if I'm interpreting this correctly, but she's asking, what should parents do when the child wants someone to spend the night? I assume she means like a friend or maybe a cousin.
Well, I'm not going to be the one to tell folks how they should or shouldn't interpret the shelter-in-place order. I think the shelter-in-place order is very specific, saying that people are encouraged to shelter in place, that there shall be no public gatherings. So I would say that the spirit of a sleepaway probably very definitely violates the spirit of the law, which says no social gatherings, that people are to maintain a 6-foot distance from anybody but members of their own household. Mm-hmm. And households are defined as residents living in the same household. So it doesn't necessarily need to be family members. They can be roommates in an apartment. But I think having people come from another house to have a sleepover at your house probably violates the order.
And it's just not the safe thing to do from a public health perspective, right?
No, not at all.
David, Debbie Lee is asking us, for a private contractor who sets manufactured homes, can a customer attempt to sue that contractor for not being able to work on that job because of the shelter-in-place order?
Well, surprisingly, the shelter-in-place orders, both by the state of California and the local county, do allow home construction to continue to take place. That has been very specific. There's been specific language in both orders that says home construction and construction in general can continue as an essential service in the state while this shelter-in-place order takes place.
All right. Hey, Corey has a question. Are there regulations that will prevent private citizens from wearing appropriate personal protective gear, such as Tyvek suits, rubber boots, and full face masks, to spray public areas with approved chemicals? If not, would it be illegal to form a coalition of volunteers to do this?
There's nothing in the orders prohibiting people from wearing protective gear. So masks, gloves, if you have masks or gloves or rubber boots, if you want to put on a full plastic latex suit, I guess you could. Mm-hmm. There's no law prohibiting that. The order, the question of whether or not you can start spraying a public area with disinfectant is a different question. There are laws in place that says you can't spray or hurt somebody with caustic chemicals. And I would say that that could be dangerous if you kind of take it upon yourself to go out with, bleach solution and start spraying down park benches. Somebody could misinterpret that. In this age of, unfortunately, terrorist attacks, somebody could say, oh, you're spraying it and my child is sensitive to bleach solutions. And by spraying it, you caused him to have an adverse reaction. So I would urge people to try to not take things into their own hands. I think you want to practice, common sense. If you're going to go to the grocery store and you have a bleach solution and you want to spray the handles of your grocery cart, probably that's okay. But I wouldn't go around with a coalition of people and start taking it upon yourself to disinfect an entire public area.
Yeah, we applaud the intention, but it's a little risky. All right,
exactly.
David, thank you. David, stand by, and we're going to take a quick break on the air, but on Facebook Live, we're going to continue this conversation with David Lim. So join us at facebook.com/ABC7 News right now, and we'll be right back on air after a couple minutes.
Kristen, we're in break. We can continue the interview.
All right, Facebook friends, let's continue to pose our questions to Attorney David Lim, who is still with us. Josiah Nanoy is asking, can I still go fishing?
I would say yes, because the letter of the law has basically been that you can go outdoors, you can enjoy the outdoors, you can go for a walk, a hike. One thing that I've noticed in the order that they gave is that the order was meant to be really not too restrictive. And so in the county order, they said examples of things you can do outside were walking, hiking, and running. But it didn't mean that those were the only three things you could do. And I actually think that the official response to the mass gatherings at the beaches and the parks has been a little confusing to the public, because now people aren't sure, well, can I go to a park? Can I go to a trail? My interpretation of the law is that you can, but you must maintain proper social distancing. And I think what elected officials are frustrated with are you're seeing these mass gatherings where people are getting together and playing beach volleyball, or in the example of this gentleman going together and all getting on a boat with 5 of his friends and fishing, in close quarters on a small boat. I think that violates the spirit of the law. But just going fishing on your own, I can't see anything wrong with that.
All right, David, thank you so much. As always, you have such great information, and appreciate you spending a few minutes to share them with our Facebook friends and ABC7 on-air viewers today. So take care of yourself, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again shortly.
All right, take care.
All right, David, thanks. Now, Facebook friends, you'll want to stick around with us because we're about to come back on air in 20 seconds. Didn't want to scare you. You don't have to wait that long. And then we're going to talk about something very interesting. Chatted with a psychologist today about how to avoid loneliness during this time of social distancing. So that's what we have coming up on air in 5 seconds. So. All right, we're back on air. Thank you to our Facebook friends who popped back over on air to join us. Social distancing is a term you've heard over and over again, but we talked with a psychologist, a professor from Stanford on Midday Live, and he says he hates that term. Check out the interview and comment what you think on Facebook, and we'll talk about it afterward.
First, I suggest we throw away the term social distancing. I think it's misleading, and it makes people feel as though our job in this moment is to be lonely. Our job is not to be lonely. Our job is to be physically distant from each other. But our job should also be to maintain that sense of connection, both for our well-being and the well-being of others. In fact, I think we should go with physical distancing, but I would add to that, let's talk about distance socializing, how we can make sure that we're keeping our connections even while we're far apart in space.
So you mean lots of Zoom, FaceTime calls, and just phone calls, things like that, right?
I think that it's ironic, right? Because a lot of us have been talking about these same technologies as like ripping apart our social fabric.
But the one that I'm very excited about right now is the one we just mentioned. And I think there's a real chance. I mean, again, we don't know, but there's a real chance that it could have a tremendous impact. It would be a gift from God if that worked. It would be a big game changer. So we'll see. But distribution starts tomorrow morning early in New York, and I think a lot of people are going to be, hopefully they're going to be very happy with the result, but we're all going to be watching closely. It's something we have to try. It's been very, very successful in malaria, very, very successful. And countries with malaria have had a interesting thing happen. They take this particular drug. It's a very powerful drug. And there is very little semblance of the virus in those countries. And there are those that say because this drug is very prevalent because of the malaria. So we'll see what happens. I'm also announcing that we're postponing the deadline for compliance with real ID requirements at a time when we're asking Americans to maintain social distancing. We do want to require people to go with their local DMV. We will be announcing the new deadline very soon. It's going to be announced in a very short moment. Overnight, we successfully brought home 103 American citizens after they had been stranded for 10 days in Brazil. Following a cruise, we want to thank the Brazilian government and their great president. Most of those returned were senior citizens. My administration, in cooperation with Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and the private sector, coordinated their safe return to the United States. So thank you to Governor Abbott. Terrific governor, terrific man. Earlier today, I signed an executive order invoking presidential authority under Section 4512 of the Defense Production Act to prohibit the hoarding of vital medical equipment and supplies, such as hand sanitizers, face masks, and personal protective equipment. We have a lot of face masks, a lot of equipment is coming in, and we have some people hoarding. And Attorney General Barr is going to be speaking about that in a second. We want to prevent price gouging, and critical health and medical resources are going to be protected in every form. Under this directive, the Secretary of Health and Human Services is authorized to designate essential health and medical supplies as scarce. So he'll designate certain supplies and medical elements as scarce, and that means it will be a crime to stockpile these items in excessive quantities, which is happening to a relatively small degree, we think, but nevertheless it's happening. We can't let it happen. And we can't let them resell them at excessive prices, which some people are doing. Very simply, we will not allow anyone to exploit the suffering of American citizens for their own profit. So we're going to be watching that with our great Attorney General very closely. The Department of Justice will be aggressively prosecuting fraudulent schemes related to the pandemic. Yesterday, federal prosecutors took action in their first case, shutting down a website selling a totally fake vaccine, if you can believe that one. As president, I will always fight to protect Americans from being exploited. Thankfully, all throughout the country, we're witnessing extraordinary acts of compassion, benevolence, and unity. Construction companies are donating masks by the hundreds of thousands. Manufacturing workers are transforming their assembly lines. Citizens are volunteering to deliver food and medicine to the elderly. We're truly seeing America at its best. We're really seeing things that people never thought even could happen. Frankly, we never thought this could happen. But the way most Americans are working toward getting it solved and just doing what they have to do to make this go away has been incredible. It's been incredible. I want to take a moment to thank the everyday heroes who are making our vast effort against the virus possible. And thank you to the healthcare workers and the first responders. These are very brave people. Thanks also to the hardworking men and women of Federal Express, UPS, United States Postal Service, and the truckers who are maintaining our supply chains and supply lines. We thank you very much. Great job. We also want to give our regards and thanks to everyone at our grocery stores working the night shift so that shelves can be restocked, and the restaurant workers and delivery drivers keeping our families fed. So many of these restaurants, it's incredible. They're doing service where people come and they pick it up, delivery. I mean, it's been incredible what they've been doing. Totally different business than they were in, other than they cook food. Other than that, it's like a totally different business. Most of all, I want to thank the American people for rising to the challenge and showing incredible courage, determination, patience, grace, and grit. From New York to Seattle and everywhere in between, your acts of selflessness and sacrifice and ingenuity are a powerful testament to the American character. It's really being shown. It's really showing up at a level that people are really respecting. All over the world, they're respecting. And the world has problems. We're 148 countries now. 148 countries are affected by the invisible scourge. And all of the uplifting reflections of the American spirit are out there for everyone to see. Together, we will care for our fellow citizens, and we will win this war, and we'll win it much sooner than people think. And we'll be back in business as a country pretty soon. You'll be hearing about that also pretty soon. Now I'd like to ask Attorney General Bill Barr to say a few words, and we'll take questions in a little while. Thank you.
Let me start by thanking you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, for your decisive leadership in this unprecedented battle to save American lives. At the Department of Justice, we're working hard to protect the health and safety of our personnel while at the same time keeping our enforcement efforts at full throttle. So I'd like to thank all of my colleagues in law enforcement, not just those at the federal level, but of all our state and local partners, the police officers, the sheriff's deputies who are protecting and serving their communities, often at great risk to themselves. What I'd like to do here is start with a few remarks about the order that the President mentioned to ensure the availability of critical medical and health supplies from hoarding and price gouging. On March 18th, the President issued Executive Order 13909 invoking the Defense Production Act with respect to the health and medical resources needed to respond to the spread of COVID-19, including PPE and ventilators. We have started to see some evidence of potential hoarding and price gouging. And so earlier today, the President signed a second executive order providing the authority to address, if it becomes necessary, hoarding that threatens the supply of those necessary health and medical resources. Under Section 102 of the Defense Production Act, the President is authorized to prohibit the hoarding of needed resources by designating those materials as scarce or as materials whose supply would be threatened by persons accumulating excessive amounts. Once specific materials are so designated, persons are prohibited from accumulating those items in excess of reasonable personal or business needs or for the purpose of selling them in excess of prevailing market prices. It is a crime to engage in prohibited activity. In today's executive order, the President is delegating to the Secretary of HHS this authority to protect against hoarding by designating these critical items. Now, no items have...
All right, so you've been watching a Trump administration press conference that's going on live right now. The president talked about drugs that could be used to treat COVID-19, but now Attorney General William Barr talking about sanctions against hoarding and actions they will take to prevent that. So thank you for joining us for this inaugural 3 p.m. newscast here on ABC7 News and on Facebook. You'll want to stick around for World News Now. We have the latest on ABC7 News at 4. The President's news conference continues on ABC7news.com. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.